today the Fed will announce its final monetary policy decision under the leadership of Ben Bernanke. Ion-Marc Valahu, co-founder of CLARINVEST, an investment advisory firm here in Geneva, joins me in the studio now. Ion-Marc, you're very welcome today.
Good afternoon.
So how important is this Fed meeting today?
Well, I think it's very important from the investors' perspective because it's the last meeting that Ben Bernanke will chair, and it's the end of his tenure as the chairman of the Fed. And I think that the market needs to know if they're going to taper one more time or not. And my perspective is that they will.
Okay, and many economists believe that each meeting tapering will continue to be reduced by $10 billion each time, with eventually wrapping it up completely in at the end of 2014. Is this your view, and how do you think the markets will be affected when it does finally come to an end?
Yes, I think it is my view. I mean, Ben Bernanke has been working over the last 8 to 9 months in preparing the market to the fact that the QE would end at some point, or the reduction would start. The reduction has now started. So I think for this meeting, it's a given that he will do something, just because he wants to leave as a legacy that he's the one who started tapering, and whatever happens after is not his problem. Thereafter, I think it will be data dependent. He's going to have to adjust the forward guidance because the unemployment rate is kind of dropping. Maybe not for the right reason, but it's still dropping, and it's getting closer to their target number. So he probably will have to. Janet Yellen will probably have to readjust that number, and move and see from there. But even if in a year's time or less, QE is done and over with, let's not forget that the Fed still carries a balance sheet that's over $3 trillion, and that's enough stimulus in the system to carry us for the next few years at least.
Good. And it is Ben Bernanke's last ever Fed meeting as chairman. How do you think he has done so far, and what do you think his legacy will be, and is he satisfied with his reign so far, do you think?
Well, I think he's done a lot. Is it the right solution? I'm not sure. I'd be more inclined to say that we didn't need so much stimulus because it created different bubbles and in different asset classes. But nevertheless, what is done is done. Now they have to work their way out of it, and that's going to be the difficult part because it's easy to put in stimulus, but it's difficult to remove it. And we see the turbulences in the emerging markets over the last 3 or 4 months, and recently over the last week, which is in effect the direct consequences of that extra money that floated around and ended up in emerging markets where it shouldn't have been. So yes, it's going to be a difficult period, and I think Janet Yellen is best positioned to handle it.
Yes, and Janet Yellen, do you think he's leaving it in good hands with her? She is known as a super dove. Mm-hmm. So how will this change things, or will things change that much?
Well, no, I think it's going to be a continuation. I think her background from an educational point of view, professor, and also being the right hand woman of Ben Bernanke over the last tenure is comforting for the future. And also with Fisher as deputy, which is considered an ARC. And it will be a nice counterbalance to work with the Fed QE program.
How do you think she'll work with Stanley Fischer, who's deputy and who's also considered hawkish rather than dovish?
Yeah, I think it should work nice, a nice counterbalance, and I mean it will probably neutralize the dovishness of Janet Yellen. But in the end, I think what's most important is that the economic numbers and the growth of the United States will determine the next steps in the QE or the taper reductions. So for now, we'll probably get another meeting. They'll do that, and then after that, there'll be discussions back and forth, given the level of unemployment, given the level of growth, and given the level of earnings growth of U.S. companies mainly.
Yeah.
So it's a nice play. It's a nice play. They have time. They don't have to do it 10 billion every quarter or every meeting.
Yes, and just finally, we've talked about the long term over the next year, the outlook, but just short term today, if they do reintroduce tapering again, how do you think the markets will be affected overnight and in the next week?
Well, I think at least for this meeting, I think it's pretty much priced into the market. Most people or investors expect it, so I don't think any more turbulences. What I'm most worried is more, like I said, the emerging markets. But for this meeting, I think that should be okay. We should have another 1 or 2 months of positive expectations.
Ion-Marc, thank you so much for joining me in the studio today.
Thank you.
And that's all we have time for now, but do check back for further news on how Ben Bernanke's final Fed meeting went. Bye for now.